obsessed. Nothing will stand in their way.
Catherine is evil.
What happens when you fall in love with a serial killer?
Human life meant nothing to these two people.
Two schoolgirls are consumed by a friendship. They will kill to protect.
She killed her mother because she wanted to and got her friend to go along with it.
And one woman's compulsion drives her to the unthinkable.
Here's a woman so desperate to cover up a lie that she's willing to cut another woman and rip that baby out of her womb.
These deadly women are savagely single-minded, ready to murder for their fatal obsession. Obsession drives some women to unspeakable acts, as it did in Malvern, Kansas, in December 2004.
Nancy!
36-year-old Lisa Montgomery arrives home with a new baby. Her husband, Kevin, is thrilled.
Oh my God!
Hey, Lisa, she has your nose, don't you think, Nancy?
Yeah.
But there's something wrong with this happy family picture. The memory haunts Lisa's first husband, Carl Bowman.
The images that were in your head are horrible. The idea of what happened was, I mean, it's horrible. I mean, it still affects me. And I was allowed to see evidence and pictures and stuff, and it was, yeah, it's terrible.
200 miles away in Missouri, a young woman has been savagely murdered. This smiling new mother is the killer.
Who would cut a baby out of a pregnant woman's stomach and leave the woman to die?
A few months earlier, excited mother-to-be Lisa Montgomery is preparing for a new arrival.
She begins to buy diapers. She begins to buy baby items.
I made some tea. Would you like some? Oh, no, thanks, Nancy. I'm fine.
She tells the town, her husband, her children, everyone around her that she's pregnant.
But what even her husband doesn't realize
How far along are you? I'm in my 3rd trimester.
is this baby won't be coming. Lisa's pregnancy is a lie.
You know, when I was pregnant, I was out here. You know,
She lied through her childhood,
Here's my ultrasound.
through her teen years, through her adult life.
Okay. I didn't mean anything.
And one of the lies she perpetrated most often was, I'm pregnant. Lisa would say, I'm pregnant, I'm pregnant, I'm pregnant, but the baby would never come. And then would come another lie. I miscarried.
Crime writer M. William Phelps discovered that Lisa Montgomery is an expert in faking pregnancies.
She begins to wear baggy clothes. She begins to make doctor's appointments, fake doctor's appointments. She begins to swallow air when she's around people to extend her stomach. She asks people, feel my stomach, and tightens it up. It's nice and hard. She begins to do all these things, knowing that when the 9th month comes, she's not going to have a baby.
Lisa had 4 children in her first marriage, but none with new husband Kevin. All because of another big lie.
Can I feel?
It was impossible for Lisa Montgomery to have another child.
I hope it's a girl. I really want a sister.
Her tubes were not tied, her tubes were burned, cauterized, which is an irreversible process.
Did you feel that?
Yeah. Yeah.
How could a husband sleep next to his wife for 9 months and not know that she's not pregnant? How could he look at her when she gets out of the shower and not realize she's not pregnant? Didn't he question any of the doctor's appointments? Didn't he go with her to any of the doctor appointments? The answer is no. Lisa Montgomery manipulated this guy to believe that she was pregnant.
After her due date, Lisa's lies will be exposed to the world. But she has a plan. When she befriends Bobby Joe Stinnett online, a terrible idea takes hold.
The one thing she notices about Bobby Joe is that Bobby Joe is pregnant.
I think she looked at it as Bobby Joe would be in an incubator.
For Lisa Montgomery, faking pregnancy has become a dangerous obsession.
She's lying to everybody about being pregnant. She's lying to her kids. She's lying to her husband. She's lying to the town.
Now that she's met pregnant dog breeder Bobby Joe Stinnett, the need to cover up her lies will drive her to do the unthinkable.
Lisa Montgomery is communicating with Bobby Joe Stinnett online as a woman named Darlene Fisher, a dog lover, someone who enjoys these types of dogs that Bobby Joe raises. Darlene Fisher, AKA Lisa Montgomery, makes a date with Bobby Joe to look at some puppies. Inside Lisa's car, she has a knife, a rope, and a home birthing kit.
Bobby Joe, hi.
Darlene, hi. Come on in.
Wow, you look great. You're about to pop.
Well, like, yeah.
In Skidmore, Missouri, unsuspecting Bobby Joe Stinnett opens the door to a monster.
Well, come on in. Would you like a cup of tea?
Oh no, I want to see those dogs, please.
I'll put your bag down and come this way.
Lisa Montgomery looks at the puppy, asks Bobby Joe to bend down, open the cage, pick up the puppy. She took out the rope, put it around her neck, choked her out.
Lisa is ready to steal Bobby Joe's baby.
Bobby Joe woke up. She was just knocked out. Not only is she struggling to keep herself alive, but now she's fighting for her baby.
Bobby Joe dies a violent death. Her killer will now try to deliver her baby by cesarean section.
One of the things that Lisa Montgomery did was watch a video on how to do a cesarean section. So there's evidence there that she tried to understand what she was about to do.
In order for this child to survive after the amateur cesarean section, the child would have had to have been at the end of the 8th month or the beginning of the 9th month. The child has to be removed from the womb, the airway has to be cleared, the respirations have to be stimulated, and the cord has to be cut.
The four-time mother knew just what to do. She has her baby.
This child was very lucky to have survived.
What seems like an act of madness is the bloody work of a calculating killer.
Who would cut a baby out of a pregnant woman's stomach and leave the woman to die? Only a crazy person would do that. However, in this case, this crime was premeditated and well planned. Lisa is not crazy.
Lisa's crime has been building since her childhood.
She began to become an expert at lying. Pathological lying, sure, but more so lying to people in order to, get them to do the things she wanted done.
But those lies would backfire.
Lisa Montgomery's claim is that one of her stepfathers sexually abused her. She complained about being sexually abused, but no one would listen to her. Nobody believed her.
It would be unusual for a little girl who was subjected to a violent, drunken father who sexually abused her to not have some kind of problems in adulthood. For Lisa, I believe those unresolved problems resulted in her need to get attention through phony pregnancies.
One of the first to the crime scene is Sheriff Ben Espy.
There was blood all over the entire room, and it looked like her stomach had exploded. The paramedic hollered at me and said, "You need to get in here. Here is the umbilical cord. It has been cut. There's a baby. You guys need to find a baby."
So the case turns very quickly from a homicide, brutal, graphic homicide, to a missing persons case.
The hunt is on for the missing newborn.
Nancy!
An entire nation is placed on alert.
Meanwhile, Lisa Montgomery, Kevin, her husband, they get up in the morning. They take the baby down to the local diner. They show off the baby. They're just one happy family cruising around town with their new baby.
Well, guys, she's beautiful. Thank you. Go to the nursery.
Lisa's new motherhood won't last long. The plundered body of Bobby Joe Stinnett gives up vital clues.
There was some hair in Bobby Joe's hand, clenched in her fist. And that hair was taken and kept for DNA evidence, which did end up being Lisa Montgomery's hair.
Lisa's deep-seated need to get a baby overrode her planning. She planned out how to get the baby. She did not plan out how to get away with the crime.
Lisa Montgomery is found guilty of murder and sentenced to death. She is one of only 3 women on death row.
I really believe that Lisa Montgomery deserves the death sentence. The brutality of this, going into this young lady's home and cutting the child out, if anybody deserves it, she does.
It wasn't done because she wanted that baby. That was not the point of it. The point of it was to cover up her lies.
If there's one positive aspect to draw from this case, it's that the baby was returned to its father. And Zeb Stennett has that child in his arms today, and he can raise that baby as Bobby Joe would have wanted.
Youth is a time when passion can run dangerously wild.
The desires and fantasies of a person, especially a young person, can take on an obsessional nature.
Christchurch, New Zealand.
Pauline, I just can't stop thinking about you. I just imagine that you're my princess.
15-year-old Juliet Hulme writes feverishly to her best friend. Across town, Pauline Parker, 16, desperately awaits her letter. These young girls are caught in a fatal obsession.
This was a brutal murder.
She didn't want her mother around. She hated her.
It's the early 1950s. Juliet Hulme is overjoyed to see her closest friend, Pauline Parker.
She found in Pauline an intensely close friend, and they did form a very close friendship almost straight away.
She said to her mother, "Mother, I have found someone who has got just as strong a will as I have." That's the start.
The pair share a passion for art and literature.
Now, when you open your eyes, we'll be in the film.
Both girls were very lively, Juliet in particular, very vivacious.
I'm going to count to 3.
I think in combination, they were able to devise a make-believe world, a wonderful creative outlet for all of their talents and energies.
2, 3.
We're here! Come on, let's go this way!
They would pretend to be figures from medieval fantasy worlds and historical figures.
It appears that in Juliet's case, she had an excessive and extreme fantasy life and appeared to be bad at assessing when to stop. So that leads me to believe that her fantasy life did a whole lot more for her than reality did. These girls were rather delusional. Grandiose ideas, there's nothing wrong with them. But when taken to an extreme form and not controlled, and the person basically loses touch with reality regarding that delusion, that's when they can become dangerous.
Girls, please, I'm trying to concentrate.
Obsessed with their fantasies. Obsessed with each other.
There's something very wrong between those girls.
Darling, I'm trying to finish off.
Pauline and Juliet's teenage friendship is about to become deadly.
The fact that the girls' fantasy life turned to writing murder mysteries and killing people in violence, I think was an indicator of what was to happen. And apparently a fantasy they were willing to kill for.
Christchurch, New Zealand. Teenagers Pauline Parker and Juliet Hulme lose themselves in a rich fantasy world.
Your father and I have some very exciting news for you.
Until their obsessive relationship is turned upside down.
Darling, we're moving to South Africa.
South Africa?
Yes,
Live with your mother?
Juliet's parents announce they're getting divorced and leaving the country.
Very excited.
I want to stay here with Pauline.
Yes, we understand. And you'll make
The
other
Hulme
plans.
family was disintegrating, and Pauline and Juliet could see that they were going to be separated.
Juliet, please understand.
I don't understand. I want to stay here.
Juliet will be sent to live with relatives overseas.
I know, but I want to stay here. She's my best friend. She's pretty much my only friend.
Well, of course, Juliet doesn't want to go. And then when it's determined that she has to go, she says, well, Pauline could come with me. But the only person who seems to be adamant that this was not going to happen
What do you think you are doing?
was Pauline's mother. And she says no. When she says no, she means no.
You are staying where you are. We spoke about this.
So unreasonable!
They are emotionally bonded so tightly that facing separation becomes unthinkable.
Get out of my room! Get out! Get out of my room! Get out of my room!
Faced with losing her best friend, Pauline makes a chilling decision.
It was her mother who became the target of her hatred. Pauline decided that she had to be removed.
A diary had been kept, traces all these various thoughts that they have that says what they're going to do as they plot her downfall.
I don't think Pauline had an attachment to her mother. This was a smart girl. Part of her had to believe, or certainly consider the fact that killing her mother wasn't going to result in her being able to live out her dream. She killed her mother because she wanted to, and got her friend to go along with it.
On a winter afternoon, the girls put their fatal plan into action.
They invited Pauline's mother to Victoria Park. They took a leisurely stroll down a path, and along that pathway, Juliet dropped a little ruby.
Juliet went on ahead. But when Pauline came walking along with her mother, Pauline said, "Oh, look, Mother, look at those lovely pink pebbles down there."
Seems to be it's a bauble of some form.
Pauline pulled a half brick in a stocking out of her bag and began to bludgeon Honora about the head.
It seems to be. Ah! Ah! Very good. What are you doing?
They think it will be over in seconds. But it can take a lot of violence to kill.
Just hit her!
It would take repetitive blows. It would require that the outer bones of the skull be caved in and that the brain tissue itself become pulpified. The brain would start to bleed, and that the respiratory centers at the base of the brain would become altered.
Pauline and Juliet reported that once they started the battering and the assault, they couldn't stop.
I think she's dead. Come on, let's go.
They were afraid to go on, but they were more afraid to stop.
Later on, it was found there were 45 wounds.
Juliet and Pauline have turned their darkest fantasy into reality.
The children went screaming, covered in blood, saying, "Mother has fallen down and banged her head." And one of them even says, "Well, she banged her head more than once. It was just like banging and banging and banging and banging."
But their tale about a tragic accident isn't convincing. The real story is found in Pauline's diary.
What marks this case out as distinctive is that the diary actually documented a murder plan.
Pauline and Juliet are found guilty of murder. Too young for the death penalty, they spend 5 years in prison. Freedom comes with one condition. They must never contact each other again. Today, Pauline Parker lives in England. Juliet Hulme is in Scotland, living under a different name. She is now a successful author of murder mystery stories. For some women, a fatal obsession becomes one man. A man they will kill to keep. It happened in the city of Perth, Western Australia, in 1986.
Human life meant nothing to these two people.
Former detective Paul Ferguson remembers a frightening night. A female serial killer and her partner lead him to an isolated Australian forest and proudly reveal 4 shallow graves.
Vince shifted some dirt, and when he shifted the dirt, there was the flesh of the first girl.
One disturbing moment stands out in his memory.
She pointed to the gravesite and then spat on the gravesite. Disgusted. Absolutely disgusted.
Few will forget an encounter with the killer, Catherine Burney.
I'll tell you, Catherine is evil.
Several months earlier, 35-year-old Catherine is living a normal life as a wife and mother. But ex-lover David Burney wants to rekindle their romance.
She'd been seeing Bernie while she was still married, and after 12 years, she took off with him, and that's when David Burney led her down the path of homicide.
Come on, let's go and have some fun. Come on.
Catherine suffers from dependent personality disorder. It leaves her helplessly obsessed with a dangerous man.
She believed that women were put on this earth to service and provide for men.
Catherine's not the first person to suffer from dependent personality disorder. The vast majority of people that do don't go on to become killers.
A psychiatrist told the court that he believed that it was the worst case of personality dependence he had ever seen in his life.
Researching Catherine's troubled life, writer Paul B. Kidd found a woman desperate to satisfy David's desires.
I had sex almost all day, every day, at every given opportunity. There was no stopping David Burney. He was a sexual athlete.
But David Burney needs more. His fantasies are dark and violent.
Catherine would do anything David wanted. She didn't want to risk anything to displeasure him or lose him. And if his appetite extended to sex with other women, even captive sex slaves, that was fine with her.
Hi. Hello, I'm here for some tires.
When 22-year-old Mary Nielsen calls on the Burneys,
G'day, love. How you going?
she steps straight into their terrifying new game.
The young lady was dragged in at knife point, where she was chained and gagged and tied to the bed. David Burney raped her repeatedly while Catherine looked on, and they both got off on it. Catherine must have known then that the young lady, having seen their faces, the atrocities that had been committed to her, that she'd have to die. A pair of them made love on the strength of it.
They were parasites. They lived off each other. The more they were together, the longer they were together, the stronger they became. And the rest of the world was just there for them.
Their next victim was a 15-year-old hitchhiker. The girl had no hesitation into getting into the car with a man and a woman.
Okay, dear Mum and Dad, I'm all right. I'm taking a few days away from
This
you,
time,
and I'm staying with
Catherine
friends.
is more than a spectator.
Oh, come on, let's just kill the bitch.
lady. She's gonna write this.
Catherine's need to be involved was escalating with each attack. There probably was a component where she was being sexually stimulated also.
She will do anything to please David Burney.
To prove her love to David Burney, she offered to murder the girl. David said, "I'd love to watch you murder her." So she did.
Catherine's fatal obsession will take her to the darkest parts of her lover's mind. Catherine Burney is fatally obsessed with a serial killer. To prove her devotion, she helps him live out his deadly fantasies.
She wanted to please him, but knowing that David was being turned on by this activity also, I think, stirred up a jealousy in her, and that's why she had no trouble destroying these women also.
In the midst of a brutal killing spree, Catherine and David Burney kidnap glamorous 31-year-old Nolene Patterson.
Catherine knew immediately this one was going to be a problem. She was different. She was everything that Catherine wasn't. She had class.
Yeah, no, we'll get rid of her in the morning, huh?
No, not David now.
David did not want to kill her. Kept her alive for 3 days, kept putting it off, and this brought up intense feelings of jealousy.
David, look at me! Look at me! What? You get rid of her tonight. It's either me or it's her. No,
Catherine Burney was seething, absolutely seething with rage.
Okay. We'll
Get off the bed, David! Get off the bed!
Okay, I'm off the bed, okay?
Right? I want it dead. I don't want it out.
People that suffer from dependent personality disorder don't have a sense of self really at all.
Promise you, we'll get rid of it tonight.
They develop a feeling, a belief, they cannot live without the other person. And if that other person were to leave them, they themselves would die.
Put the knife in my hand. I'll kill her now, eh?
Long after they dispose of Nolene, Catherine's bitter jealousy lingers.
Sorry, I love Kath.
Kathy never mentioned Nolene Patterson's name once, just referred to her as the bitch.
David's next move will horrify even Catherine. As they bury victim number 4, 21-year-old Denise Brown, they discover that she is still alive.
Catherine urged David to stab her again and produced a bigger knife, which David used to stab her in the neck and chest.
No.
It's really hard to kill someone when you've got a will to live. Even when you have been very injured by multiple blows, a person can still live.
As they covered her over, she sat bolt upright. She wasn't dead at all.
When she sat up in the grave, she was responding to sand being placed over her mouth or nose, obstructing her respirations. The most basic drive is to breathe. And even when your level of consciousness is altered, if there is sudden obstruction, you're going to do whatever you can to preserve your airway.
David Burney, seething with anger. I'll fix her this time.
His savagery shakes even Catherine's devotion.
Catherine became, I think, frightened and repulsed by David crushing the skull of a victim. Catherine started having doubts that she could go on with the killing.
I stayed the night at Sarah's, and I forgot to call you.
5 days later, Catherine is home alone with their latest captive.
I'll be home tomorrow night.
This teenage girl is due to die.
Keep your mouth shut. Got it? I'll be back.
There was the knock on the front door. Catherine put the girl to one side.
Seeing her opportunity, the young lady, no clothes on, jumped straight through the window. Did Catherine Burney leave the bedroom window open on purpose? We'll never know. Was the axe murder too much for her? Was it her way of saying, I've had enough? This is the end of this.
Catherine forfeited any right to be a member of our community the day she murdered those girls.
Catherine and David Burney are found guilty of murder and sentenced to life in prison, never to see each other again.
In the courtroom, Catherine leaned forward and stroked the back of his hand, an act of devotion, caring, empathy, love. For most people, for me, what it represented was, don't forget me.
Obsession took these women down a dark path, killing those who stood in their way. To cover up her lies, Lisa Montgomery stole a baby from the womb. Catherine Burney made an unholy alliance with a serial killer. And Pauline Parker's strange bond with Juliet Hulme destroyed a loving mother. For these deadly women, a single-minded desire became a deadly focus. Murder was a means to an end when they were in the grip of a fatal obsession.